deep in the land of China, on the go-to mountaintop, in the city of Longyou. There are a number of pools, and these pools were deep. How deep? No one knows. But they were certainly built by somebody. Who were they? And what were they doing? Well, nobody knows. That's who they were. When these pools were drained out, they revealed something quite interesting. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U. That was a long U. Hey, that's the mnemonic way to remember the name of these caves you haven't heard about, called the Longyou Caves. And you haven't heard of them because, well, not because they aren't awesome, not because they aren't fascinating, not because they aren't amazing and mysterious. It's because they are not part of the fun and common core historical narrative. Okay, so remember where you are. Here at the UAP channel, you're going to learn all about them because they are amazing, because you haven't heard of them, because you don't know about them, and because they are somewhat mysterious, quite fascinating, and one of a kind, much like your host, me, UAP. That's right. Okay, moving on. The Longyou Caves. Yeah, they knew about them, but they didn't know the extent of them. They didn't know the depths of them. They had probed the depths of the pools, approximately 24 pools in an area called a grotto, and each of the pools were very deep, and they would stick sticks down there to probe the depths of the pools, and they just went on and on and on and on. With each attempt, the deeper they probed, the more long you needed the probe to be. It was not dissimilar to the experience of a very tiny man with an Amazon woman in their first intimate time together. It was perhaps disconcerting also for the villagers in Longyou. And finally, in 1992, somebody had the bright idea to drain the water out with some pumps. And so they drained that water out, and they found this. Unearthed caverns, 5 of them so far. They are very precisely constructed, and they have distinctive markings on them. They were extremely well preserved. The outsides look very, I would say, weathered, but it's more than that. But the insides are very preserved, very well preserved. And the structures were certainly machined by man, we assume, and it seems like the stone itself is uniform. So they didn't leave evidence about the construction. The official narrative is saying that the walls were chiseled, but I doubt that.
In some reports, they say that fish would never live in these pools, but in other reports, it says that the fish do live there still. And the caves, they estimate as being over 2,000 years old because there's no historical record. Really, that just means they're predating 1850. And the caves have some interesting features or qualities, that they're each independent of the other, so they're self-contained chambers, but they're geometrically well laid out, and the walls run exactly parallel at times to adjacent chambers with only 50 to 60 centimeters separation. The scale of the caves, the pattern of the walls, the sophisticated designs and shapes within are evidence of not only extremely tall beings, or perhaps uses for these caves if they weren't dwellings. They certainly had big openings and wide berths for whatever traversed the hallowed halls of these grottos, these subterranean, or perhaps at the time simply terranean structures. The artwork, I think, indicates perhaps something done to prepare the caves for the public, to cast a qualitative narrative over the interpretative process of the visitors. I think they may not be original. I think the floors were raised and the features were hidden or covered up or smoothed out with various building materials that were not original to these Longyou Caves. Caves, caverns, some people think they're cisterns, like gathering spots to hold or store water. Cistern. So, you have a cistern. Mao Zedong was wise to hide you. Now his failure is complete because they're found. Now this artwork, thought to have been left by the constructors, probably wasn't. See the one guy in the second one to the left? He's playing golf. He's just got a couple irons, you know. He's just playing like a short par 3. I've done that before. Just take like a 9 iron, 7 iron. Heck, maybe a 5 iron. You don't need anything longer than that. You know, just par 3s, right? Anyway. The pillars, the columns, they kind of look familiar if you saw the lead mine video. These are a little bit more deliberate, and they have some ventilating features, some electrical wiring kind of put in there. I thought was interesting. May have all been done afterwards, but who knows? Who knows? There's been a number of mineralized, perhaps even antediluvian structures unearthed that show signs of electrical work, pressurized plumbing of whatever fluids. There's been some on the Wise Up channel that showed that, also some that showed evidence of an evaporator, like a radiator evaporator of a cooling system. So I found this machine that carves out caves that makes similar markings. It's not exactly the same, but I think that's what was being used. They certainly didn't chisel it out by hand like you're being told in the developing official narrative. We can use our brains and figure out, just by looking at what we see in modern times, how it matches up, and figure that they used similar equipment to form these caves a long time ago, even though they weren't supposed to have had those instruments at the time, because they didn't have electricity, they didn't have diesel engines, whatever. Yeah, we know. Bullcrap. And you can see the opening there at the bottom. They've raised the floor like I told you they do in these things. They're going to keep raising that floor to the point that you need to, when you go through these, you have to crouch down, because they want you to think that if people did walk through those hallowed halls, that they had to be people our size or even smaller, but they weren't. All they do is they raise the floor. And see the stair steps going up the side? Those have been knocked away. And then in some pictures you can see it's been filled in to make it like a ramp, which makes sense for us, but you have to keep in mind the original hallways, you can see how tall they are. That's how it is all over the world. If it's a hallway that people walk through, if they're stairs that people use, they are huge. They are for very tall people, like, I don't know. Well, I do know. It's at least 12 feet tall. People who are at least 12 feet tall, who could be carrying something over top their own heads, and they don't have to worry about hitting lights hanging down. That's how tall those hallways usually are in these very, very old structures that become, well, that get unearthed and are shown. See, here they covered something up, you can tell, when they put those stones. It's the masonry work that's done afterwards. What are they hiding? Well, hopefully the pictures of it before they hid it will show. And they raised the entire floor of the caves. I could see throughout the pictures they raised them more and more, and the columns always go below the ground. And they even filled in the hallways from the top down. You can see in this picture, you can see what's left of the original shape of the taller hallway, the markings left there. And they're bringing the roof down with scaffolding, and it's just going to be more and more obscured. They're covering it up with equipment and artwork, and they're refashioning it to make it a tourist experience, which is very understandable. But the preservation and the interpretation, the correct interpretation of how it was actually used, the reasons it was constructed, tend to get lost with all of this activity that they do that they don't need to do. There's no reason to do it. But that's interesting, that green smudge mark. What's that? I wonder if it was there before. Anyway, is that ye olde ladder lean in place there? I don't know. I think it's like concrete, or maybe it's the indigenous rock from before or after the flood. I think it would be after the flood. But it just seems like it was hollowed out. In the top area, it looks like it was melted. Again, we see this all over the earth more and more. Scorched, melted. It shows evidence of bricks that were, I don't know, crushed, melted, smashed, demolished, smushed, squashed, squashed, whatever. In some of these photos, there are steps, human-sized steps. They're underwater, but yes, you can see them. They, if they were original, they seem to be quite a bit larger than the steps made by the tourism gang. You know, these, I don't know if you call them docents, but the tour guides that take you through these places, you might as well just figure they have forked tongues, because they're telling you the official narrative that is nonsensical. It's just nonsense. The ones that really grind my gears are the ones in Cairo, Egypt, taking you through the pyramids. They spout off some just tired, old, stale nonsense because, first of all, the timelines are too long, the knowledge is too specific, it's boring, everything's a temple or a tomb, blah blah blah, same old crap. Now you can see that most of what's in this picture has been modified, built up, not necessarily upgraded. I mean, maybe to make it easier for unhealthy and obese tourists to go up and down the stairs, whatever, that's fine, you know, for the accessibility. But for the historicity of it, I am taken aback. Now, this is what it was more originally, not so long after it was drained. They built those stairs at the bottom in the background to get up to that upper opening. That kind of tells me that it was probably a structure. I was thinking it could have been one of these cisterns, like actually intended to hold a lot of water. But as we know, there are many cave systems that have been found and opened up that are probably intended to house people. The thing that I find about these that's quite interesting is the fact that they have only one opening. There's one entrance exit. So it could have been kind of like a prison, because getting up and out through the one opening would be quite difficult. And then it's so vast and open that you can have enough fresh air and everything. There's a certain scale to it where even if it's filled with water, the water won't necessarily become unpotable, because smaller amounts of water that are stagnant will become unpotable rather quickly. The movement of water keeps it fresh. Something I'm not fully understanding. I understand that it works and how basically it can work, but really just the movement of water keeps it fresh. But here the volume is so great that the water would stay fresh from lack of oxygen and light for such of a vast volume. But yes, you can see here they've raised the floor artificially so that you almost hit your head going down. That's purposeful for sure. But this video, in this video you can see the floor probably artificially raised, maybe not in that spot, but certainly over there. And the ceiling's very high, like in the lead mines. It's hundreds of feet high. I'm thinking of some fictional works of mythological types that have dragons, and this would be something just about perfect for it, like a dragon cave, something like that. Certainly there's enough room for a dragon, and if there was a ton of gold down there and the dragon's sitting on it, would you go in and try to take it? Probably, who knows? Those are the Longyou Caves. The Longyou. Thank you for watching the UAP channel. Catch you on the flippity flop. Bye bye.